Warning, this video may contain content that may not be suitable for children or anyone else that is easily offended. Strong language, graphic content, nudity, bad jokes, and a possible idiot, aka myself, may be featured in the following clip. Viewer discretion is advised. Channel is not responsible for any damages that you receive watching this video. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Zems, and welcome to Reprisal Zems 3 Horror Story Christmas Special. Not one, not two, but 3. First up, we're going to have the 4 true Christmas time horror stories. The second one's going to be the top 3 scariest run-in with unknown predators by Mrballen, and it's going to be a third video, which is going to be kept a secret till the very end. I hope you guys are going to enjoy this, man. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I thought you guys would enjoy something like this, so hopefully I'm right. If you guys haven't already, be sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, support your boy. Let's keep pushing. The road to 5,000 is along the way. Thank you guys for participating and taking part in this journey, man. I really appreciate it. But for now, let's get it. Story 1.
My dad always loved going crazy with the Christmas lights when I was young.
Facts.
He was an overachiever with it, and I always had to have the most impressive display on the block. The year of 2010 was no exception. He set the lights up on timers so that they'd flash along to certain Christmas songs, which was becoming a popular trend in 2010. We had a bunch of onlookers and people stop by and take videos. My dad always ate that up.
Yeah, the thing is, like, the Christmas lights be all cool and stuff, but I remember putting them up, you'd be like, oh, they look so nice, and then 2 or 3 days later, you have to take them down. But some people leave them up right around past New Year's, maybe even after New Year's. Maybe they take them down in February sometimes, because taking them down is facts.
This was on a night where there was a light snowfall, and it was below freezing out, so not the weather a lot of onlookers would want to come and check out the display. There were a couple that we noticed, a woman and then a man. The woman left after a few minutes. The man stayed and admired it. We saw a smile on his face. He stayed for quite some time, actually, and I knew my dad loved that.
Yeah, but that's kind of
Eventually
weird.
it got late, and it started snowing a little heavier, so my dad pulled the plug on the lights for the night. Quite literally pulled the plug.
The guy's about to get
The
pissed.
lights and music outside stopped, and on that note, that meant the night was approaching its end. Everyone went upstairs to shower or brush their teeth or do whatever they had to do. I went to my room upstairs and looked out the window, as a curiosity thing to see how many people still had their lights on at this hour. Only a couple houses. I picked up on more than just that. That man who was admiring the lights was still outside on the sidewalk, facing the house.
Yeah, he's pissed because he didn't get more of the action, bruh. He was fascinated with those lights, and then he took it away from him, and they were just like, no. How much you want to bet this crusty old dude goes inside the house and try to find the plug and replug everything so he can stand back outside and watch it from a distance? People are weird like that, bruh. Go to that length to try to get those Christmas lights back on. But that's just me. I don't know. I don't know. That's just me.
Though all the lights were now off, I called my dad over a bit confused and concerned. He came to the window with me and looked out. What do you think he's doing? I asked. I don't know, my dad said. We both assumed the guy might be waiting for the lights to turn back on. Either that or he may be loony, or both.
Yeah.
My dad said
Both.
just lower the blinds and ignore it. He'll go away eventually.
Oh.
I brushed my teeth, got some water, then turned off my light and climbed into bed.
Nah, man.
I heard the little flakes of snow tapping on the window, a sound I always found very relaxing. But I wasn't relaxed. I was wide awake and curious. I had to look out my window. I pulled the blind up just a little
You
to
got
sneak a
closer.
peek outside. The man was gone, but I could see footprints in the snow on our front lawn, which started from the sidewalk. Curiosity got the best of me. I tiptoed downstairs to the front door, which has 3 square glass windows at the top of it. I peeked through that glass, and I wish I hadn't. He was standing on the other side of the door, looking at the glass window. A big smile on his face, accentuating his crow's feet and smile line.
Crow's feet. That man, my dude, was dirt old, bruh. He had to be friends with Jesus. You got crow's nest feet on your face, bruh. He's super crusty, bruh. Don't ignore some. If you turn off the lights and everybody left and it's just one person still standing there in front of your house, don't just ignore him. He been standing there for hours on end because he said they was out there watching the lights and everybody left and then it started snowing harder and they turned off the lights and he was still standing outside. No red flags whatsoever. That's a bunch of red flags, bruh. Red flags made it and had 2 more red flags, and their red flags, those red flags went on to have 3 more red flags. That's how many red flags it's been so far since this video has started. Call the police, let them take the dude away, you know what I'm saying, and go on about your business. Now this dude's probably about to go in and about to clap some people's cheeks over some Christmas lights.
He had a mustache and was wearing one of those old-time wool caps
He had a
and a
mustache.
large black coat. He had a look of crazy in his eye. For that brief couple of seconds I looked at him before falling back screaming. Everyone came out of their rooms in response to my screams. I pulled the front door open for my dad to see. The man wasn't on the stoop anymore, but we saw him quickly walking across the street into the park. My dad, brother, and I all rushed to put on our shoes, skipping the coats so to not waste time.
You already wasted time.
We chased after him by following his footprints into the park. It was so cold it felt like thousands of icicles were stabbing my body. We got across the street to the park and went into the trees. But following the footprints got harder under the trees as less snow had accumulated, until there was not enough snow at all to even leave footprints in. We had to give up and run back home to warmth. Technically, we don't know if that man did anything illegal, just downright disturbing and creepy. Maybe he was messing with my family, maybe he was mentally ill. None of these questions will ever be answered, though.
Peeping in somebody's house not illegal? Is that not like trespassing or peeping Tom type situation? Am I wrong? Or I'm pretty sure that's a crime. You trespassing. Story 2.
I was on my way home from working a graveyard shift on Christmas Eve night. It was a snowy night. The roads were icy and slippery. I was driving slow and cautious, listening to Christmas music. There were next to no cars on the road at all, just the occasional snowplow truck. I was on a quiet service road when I came to a red light. There were 2 cars in front of me. The light quickly turned green, but the cars didn't move. I'm not the type to honk, if ever, but after 30 seconds of neither of the cars moving, I finally tapped on the horn. Still nothing. The car in front of me wasn't even honking at the car in front of him.
Red flag. If you honk and nobody's moving or even honk back at you, then something's wrong. Unless you're in Japan, because they don't really beep or anything. They're so super friendly, dude. It's not even funny. Beeping these days, you can't get caught beeping at people. Man, road rage is a thing, bro. People be dying over that, bro. Beeping, and they get shot for beeping at somebody, and they get mad. It's crazy. And most of the time, it's their fault in the first place, but they don't feel like they're never wrong. And it ends bad. I seen one dude he shot a McDonald's worker, I believe, because the order was taking too long. Can you imagine you got shot over someone's meal being not fast as they would like it to be? So you pretty much got killed over a 10-piece nugget, 20-piece nugget, maybe a quarter pounder, Big Mac, McChicken sandwich, I don't know, with cheese, spicy chicken sandwich. I don't know. Just imagine though, you got clapped over a sandwich.
Another like 20 seconds passed and I honked again. I noticed someone on the sidewalk watching this happen. I thought he must be thinking, what an asshole, whoever's in the front car. We were sitting there so long now that the light changed to red again.
Just go around.
Like I said, I'm not the type to honk, so I'm definitely not the type to get out of my car and confront someone.
Go around.
This was too much. I was exhausted and wanted to go home. I got out from my car and walked over to the car in front of me, which for the record was still on. Both of them were. I knocked on the window, I looked inside. The car was empty. I walked to the car in front of it, and it was empty too. There was no way to explain this.
Or could just went around when I don't know about anybody else, but I would have just drove right around. If your car is not moving and I'm beeping, I'm going to assume your car is dead. It broke down or something, and I'm going to go around. If I don't see nobody in the car, I'm leaving. Might send you help, but I'm not getting out of my car, bro.
2 running cars blocking a lane. No one inside either of them. No signs of an accident or anything. I was ready to ask that guy on the sidewalk if one of these cars were his. When I looked in the direction where he was standing,
gone.
He wasn't there anymore. The light turned green. Okay, whatever. I was gonna drive around them on the opposite side of the road and be gone. So that's what I did. I was way too unsettled to stick around there.
There we go.
A few blocks down, I saw a cop car parked in an empty parking lot. Unfortunately, I missed the entrance, so I started honking my horn and flashing my lights to get his attention, and it worked. He turned his car on and exited the parking lot to pull up behind me on the road. It felt like he was pulling me over, kind of, because he exited his car to walk up to mine. I didn't leave my car as a respect thing, I guess. Lowered my window and told him about the 2 weird abandoned cars back there and how they were obstructing traffic. He thanked me and said he'd check it out. Then his attention turned to something in the back seat, and he said, "Why is he laying on the floor like that?" "What?" I said. I turned around and saw a hooded man laying on the floor of my car. I screamed in front of the cop, stepped out and yelled at the cop that I didn't know him. The cop drew his gun and ordered the guy to step out with his hands raised.
Bruh, see, this is exactly why you don't get out the car. Don't get out the car, people. Please do not get out the dang car, bruh. I've heard of stuff like this. They make you stop and get out of your car to make you do something, and somebody sneaks in your car, or they does something to your car. They take your car and they drive off. You know what I'm saying? It's a real known tactic. But I wasn't thinking about that at the time. It's a horror story, so I thought maybe people were going to be dead inside the vehicle, or, you know, I don't know. Maybe that guy on the right was a killer or something. He was disposing bodies. Who knows, you know? Stop getting out the car. And another thing I want to think about is when you get out the car or you get in the car, especially at nighttime, you know what I'm saying? Don't the lights in your car come on? Or is it a feature you can turn that off? Because every time I open my car at night, the lights come on. So if I was doing something, looking at somebody's car, and my lights come on, I'm pretty sure I would have seen that from the corner of my eye, for one. And if the guy was just there and he's gone, and there's no direction that he could have possibly went, I want to check the back seat. I've always checked the back seats when I get in my car. Every time. I look in the back seat before I even get in the car. And I've seen too many horror movies to just get clapped. If he didn't flash down that cop, he would have been flashed down by the dude that was in the back seat with a handgun.
He did so. When the man was in handcuffs, I recognized him as the guy standing on the side of the road. so I told the cop. The cop called for backup. He shook my hand and told me he'd take care of the rest, and to go home safe, and we wished each other a Merry Christmas. I drove home with a mix of emotions, but that Christmas, all I know is I had a newfound appreciation for police officers.
Yeah, look, I want to add that too. A lot of people like to hate on police officers. Oh, police officers bad. All police. No, all police officers not. If that police, imagine that police officer was asleep, or he just wasn't. He was lazy. He wasn't patrolling that area. He just went off somewhere to go to sleep. If he wasn't right there, he would have had no one to flag down, and he would have been clapped. You gotta have respect for some police officers, man. I know not all of them are great, but there are some good ones out there. Yeah, man, let's get it. Story 3. So far, these stories is hitting, man. This is some good stories. Good job, Mr. Nightmare.
My wife and I live in a duplex in Queens, New York. Last month, 2 upper middle-aged women moved in next door.
Uh-oh.
We never had the chance to greet them the first few days. They seemed very...
That's my cold cream Bengay and vanilla pudding.
quickly in and out at first. Say, the 4th day, I caught one of the women carrying a box from her car into her side of the house. So I walked out to finally greet her. Her name is Frances, and she seemed normal enough.
I haven't met no
She also
Frances.
seemed like she was in a hurry, so I didn't steal too much of her time. The next day was Christmas Eve, so my wife and I were preparing to host my sister and their families. During our Christmas Eve dinner, which was going completely normal, we all went silent and looked at the door. We all heard the sound of someone trying to push open the locked door. I got up and opened the door to see who it was. By the time I opened the door, there was no one on the stoop.
There's no way.
There was this woman walking down the sidewalk. Began to call out, but stopped mid-first word, deciding not to even bother. Maybe she had the wrong house. And that's what I said to my family when I sat down.
Don't nobody just go to the random. Like, at least if it was the wrong house, you'd at least, put the key in. Oh, the key don't fit. It's not turning. Oh, this is not my house. Like, you know what your house look like. Unless all the houses look the same. It's a duplex. I get it, maybe. But you just don't keep rattling the handle and rattling and rattling. And then when I finally go to open the door, you leave to go walk down the sidewalk. Like, no, bro, red flag.
Wrong house. My family all left around 9 that night. After that, the wife and I began our cleanup. I was mid-washing dishes when the front door opened and then shut pretty aggressively. In my head, it could have been my wife or any of my sisters returning because they forgot something. When I called for my wife and she answered from a different room, I knew it wasn't her. So I turned off the sink, dried my hands, and walked into the living room.
Clapped.
There was a woman sitting in my big recliner chair in the corner. She was looking at the wall, muttering something to herself. I recognized her to be one of the women from next door. My wife entered the room and gasped, calmly told the woman she was on the wrong side of the house. Then she looked at me and continued muttering inaudible words. There was clearly some form of dementia. I told my wife to go hurry and knock on the neighbor's door.
I don't know if you guys seen those movies, but old people with dementia are mighty strong. I can't think of that movie, but it was an older dude. He was strong as I don't know what, bro. He was half Thor, half horse, half hippopotamus, half tiger, half whatever you can think of. He was strong, bro. He was just built different. It was crazy. I don't know if it was just a movie or not, but the man had some muscle. I don't know. I would have called 911 or something, bruh. I hit her over the head with a turkey baster or a measuring spoon or something because she's too old. And I don't want to injure her too bad. I just want to lightly tap her and tap her and knock her out for a little bit while I call the police. I would have hit her in the head with one of these, bruh. Like one of these, like a little measuring cup. Not this one. This one was too damn big. I feel like I'll give her a concussion because she's already old. So I would have just hit her in the head with this one. Maybe this one. Yeah, hit her over the head with this one. She's like, oh. Fall out, play possum, call 911 or psychiatric asylum, whatever. We're good to go. Or, old people like candy too, so you can convince her with like a mini Snickers. You know what I'm saying? Or one of these Lindor chocolates, you feel me? You gotta do it somehow. You can't hurt the elderly, but you can temporarily disable them.
My wife left and was back with Frances surprisingly quickly. Frances seemed very relieved and grabbed the woman by the arm and pulled her off the chair and out of the house to their side. Frances came back a minute later to apologize and explain that her sister has what's known as sundowning syndrome, a form of dementia in which the symptoms get worse as the day goes on. I asked a question I felt rather important, which was, does she get aggressive at all in this state? I didn't like her answer. She said it's just best to leave her alone later in the day when she starts acting up. I wasn't overly friendly considering I was pretty taken aback by what just happened.
Leave her alone? She came to my house.
Wasn't rude either. Frances left, and my wife and I just looked at each other with these what the hell just happened looks on our faces. Anyway, this time I remembered to lock the door. The next day we went to my wife's parents' house for Christmas dinner. It was a nice time. We got home late since they live about an hour away, so I'd say we got home around 11. We cuddled up in bed and watched whatever Christmas movie was still on at that point. After that, our Christmas was over, and we cut the TV and went to sleep. My eyes opened to a dark room. I sensed I had been woken up by a noise. I looked around the room and spotted her walking out of the room and into the hall. Honey, are you okay? Huh? I heard next to me in a groggy, half-asleep voice. Wife was still laying next to me in the bed. I leaped out of bed, looked down the hall, and saw the tall, lanky figure of who I could only assume to be that woman from next door.
Alright, that's it, bruh. She had one pass already. The second one, she's getting these, bruh. Only fans, bruh, only hands. This is what she's about to get. She's about to get the holy grail of Christmas, bruh. On the 12th day of Christmas, my neighbor gave to me, bruh, with left jabs, right uppercut, 2 to the stomach, bruh. She better have life alert, bruh, cause she gonna need it, bruh. I don't know how she keep getting in my house, bruh, but she about to find out today, bruh. She about to get, I'm about to be here with mine, bruh. I'm about to Nintendo switch her ass. Give her like how Max be giving her, Matt be giving people on Nintendo Wii boxing, bruh. I'm about to be here with mine, bruh. She's about to get it. I swear she's about to. She's getting it, bruh. She already got it. I'll let her slide one time. Let her slide once. She's not getting any more chances.
She noticed me in the doorway. I yelled wrong house before slamming the bedroom door shut and locking it. I heard her march down the hall back to our door and try opening it. She tried pushing and shoving the door, making these weird, angry noises.
Told you, she's strong.
I called the police and said our new neighbor with dementia had broken in and might possibly be violent. I requested they ring the neighboring door to wake up Frances and get her to come in here. Waiting for the police was a miserable, nail-biting experience. When they finally did come, I left our room and went to the front door to let them in. Frances came in with the police, extremely worried and apologetic. Her sister was walking around in our basement, all confused like. Frances took her back to the other side once again and came back out to talk with the police and I. She expressed sincere sorrow and gratitude for me not hurting her.
Shit, better
I
me.
told her firmly this was not okay, and warned if this happened again that I would consider pressing charges. From that point on, we obviously locked everything, including windows. Frances' sister
You'd have thought they would have did that in the first place when she first broke in, but I guess not.
eventually went to go live with their mother instead. Thank God for us.
Story 4, let's get it, the last one, before we go to our next video, boy. Merry Christmas.
As a father of 2, Christmas is already a stressful time of year for me. 2 Christmases ago, my kids were still in love with the idea of Santa Claus. After watching the Polar Express as a family, my wife tucked the kids into bed and she started putting the presents under the tree. I didn't really do any of that stuff. Laid in bed watching something on TV, waiting for her to come up. By the time she was done, we were ready for bed. We're early birds when it comes to sleep. I'm also a pretty good sleeper. I'm lucky enough to be able to knock out within a few minutes. And waking up in the middle of the night is unusual for me.
It's not usual for me.
I was confused at first when I woke up that night. Then I realized why. My daughter Kelsey was in the room, saying "Daddy" over and over, rubbed my eyes and asked her what's wrong. She had this cute little happy smile on her face, said, "Santa's here." Smiled back at her, "Yes, he is." Told her she better be quiet and hurry back to her room so that Santa doesn't find out she's awake. Giggled and said okay. Walked out of my room, leaving the door open. I laid back down and tried to get back to sleep. A couple minutes later, I heard some shuffling around downstairs. I sighed, because I knew Kelsey probably went down there to open her presents early, which is what she did the year before. I reluctantly got up and walked towards the stairs, started clomping down the stairs. The noises I was hearing ceased. I got to the bottom step and I was in the living room by the tree. The lights on the tree were still on. I guess because it was Christmas Eve night. All the presents seemed to still be there, so Kelsey wasn't going through them after all. Still, I walked around the living room and dining room whispering her name just to see if she was hiding somewhere. Gave up and went back up the stairs. I was about to go to my wife and I's room when I decided I'd step into Kelsey's room just to check if she was in there.
Don't tell me,
She
bro.
was, sitting up in her bed, wide awake. I asked her why she went downstairs when I told her to go to bed. She whispered excitedly, "It wasn't me. Santa's down there." Tried to begin a sentence, but stuttered, then froze.
Well, Santa's about to get a major league ass whipping if I go down there and he's eating my milk and cookies, I'll tell you that much. Bruh, that's when this is when it comes back to bite you in the butt, bruh. Because your kid's excited about Christmas, so you're like, oh yeah, Santa's here, and Santa's actually there, alright. He's there, alive and well.
I ran down the stairs and turned on the lights, looking around the whole house. Then I found that the back door was open. Nobody locked it. Someone had broken into our house on Christmas Eve night, right under our noses, and stole a few of the presents left under the tree, according to my wife. Worst part about this is I heard whoever was down there. In fact, my 7-year-old daughter did too. Hell, she even came into my room and basically gave me a warning. Still
Oh my
calls me
God.
to this day.
I think the daughter would have went down there, bruh. If he would have went down there, it wouldn't have been good. Somebody would have got ho-ho-hoed all the way home, bruh. If you guys enjoyed this one, make sure you swoop down to that description box and hit the original video to go over and subscribe to Mr. Nightmare and watch the video in its entirety. I'll be pausing and stopping through the whole thing. Shall we continue? Welcome to the top 3 scariest run-ins with unknown predators as part of the Missing 411 series with Mrballen. So if you guys want to see the video in its entirety while I'll be pausing and stopping through the whole thing, you know what to do. Swoop down to that description box, hit the link, and go watch the video in its entirety and show some support to Mrballen because the man drops content 3 to 4, even 5 times every week, which he's about to tell you right now. Let's get it. Merry Christmas.
missing under baffling conditions in the woods of North America. One former police detective named David Paulides has investigated thousands of these strange disappearances, and he documents what he finds in his incredible book series called Missing 411. Today, we're going to look at 3 cases from the Missing 411 that might shed a light on what's behind all these strange
But before we do that,
But before we get into today's stories, if
you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right channel because that's all we do, and we upload you 3, 4, even 5 times every week.
So if that's of interest to you, please go to the like button's house on a really hot day and ask them to get you a cold drink. While they're away, hide a large raw salmon in their While they're away, hide a large raw salmon. I can feel it. I can feel it coming on. While they're away, hide a large raw salmon in the AC vent. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads.
Bro, Mr. Ballo, you already know what to do, people. The Bennington Triangle. I hope it has nothing to do with math or isosceles or any obtuse or anything that has to do with those triangles because your boy sucks at math.
West Townshend is a rural area on the east side of Glastonbury Mountain in the American state of Vermont. This is significant because that places West Townshend in the so-called Bennington Triangle, which is apparently one of the most haunted places in America. The Triangle is a loosely defined area that encompasses the ghost town Glastonbury, which used to be a small logging community centered on the eponymous mountain in southwestern Vermont. The town was abandoned at the end of the 19th century after the logging boom died down, so as a result, the greater Glastonbury area that West Townshend is certainly a part of is now untouched, pristine wilderness that even by—
But they call it a triangle because they give you 3 options to die, or 3 ways you could possibly die going to this place, or 3 ways you could possibly be haunted, or 3 ways you may be possessed if you go to this island, bruh. You heard it here first, folks. Reporting live with Zems.
standards is incredibly rugged and remote. The Triangle has earned its spooky reputation due in large part to the alarming number of unexplained disappearances that have occurred there over the last 100 years. Furthermore, over those 100 years, there have been dozens of sightings of the so-called Bennington Monster, which is apparently this 8-foot-tall creature that roams the mountains of Glastonbury, and some people think that creature is behind many, if not all, of these strange disappearances. On November 23rd, 1943, 37-year-old Carl Herrick and his cousin Henry decided to go to West Townshend to do some deer hunting. At some point during their hunt, the pair got separated, and Henry spent some time yelling for Carl and looking around for him, but he couldn't find him, and so he assumed he must have gone back to their camp. But when Henry got back to camp—
does anybody else, when you hear somebody say Carl, you think of Rick Grimes from Walking Dead? Carl! Every time I hear Carl, that's what I think of.
It was empty, and Henry waited around for a little while for Carl, but he had this sinking feeling that something was wrong, and so relatively quickly, he left to get police. Police show up, they launch the search. For 3 days, they combed the entire area, and there was just not a sign of Carl anywhere. On the 3rd day, Henry discovered Carl's body. He was lying motionless face down in a clearing in the woods. Initially, Henry thought maybe he was still alive, so he ran over to him and rolled him over, and very quickly realized that no, Carl was deceased. However, there weren't any obvious injuries to Carl's body. He had some minor scratching on his arms and on his hands, but that was about it. Henry looked around the area and he found Carl's rifle that was loaded leaning up against a tree 70 feet away from where Carl was. Next to his rifle on the ground was an expended shell casing. Also, around Carl's body were apparently huge bear tracks. The official cause of death was baffling. Carl, apparently, was squeezed to death to the point where his rib broke and punctured his lung. So the theory became Carl must have been out here by himself. He encountered a black bear. He fired one shot at the black bear. Thinking it was down, he walked over to check, and the bear attacked him and squeezed him and killed him. The end. But not so fast.
Let me tell you guys one thing. If there's anything about bears, they're not about to hug you to death. They may maul you to death, maybe bite you, you may bleed out, but ain't no bear about to hug you, bro. It's not Yogi. He's not going to be like, hey, boo-boo, let me get another picnic basket. Oh, no. Oh, be a Yogi squeeze. Like, no, bro. That's not going to happen. It had to be Bigfoot, bro. There's no other way you can get squeezed to death like that, unless you got squeezed by Mark Henry, or maybe the Rock Johnson, you know what I'm saying? Maybe DK Metcalf from football. But other than that, bro, you're not about to get squeezed to death by a black bear, bro. And you're not about to go shoot a black bear one time and think one bullet is about to stop that thing. And then you're going to rest your rifle upward against a tree. Like, nobody's about to do that. Like, bow, up. Think I got him. All right, I'm gonna go over and put my rifle. You're not gonna drop your rifle. Why would you drop the only thing that was pretty much help you in your self-defense? You wouldn't do nothing like that. And then it's just some big bear tracks, bruh. So what I think happened was, because I'm Detective Zems, I think he fired at this thing. He missed. Then he tried to reload it and got scared, you know what I'm saying? Dropped the weapon, tried to run. This thing chased him into the open field and pretty much hugged him and crushed him to death and then left him to die. And he had a couple of scratches. My thing is, no bears is about to they're not about to crush your ribs, bruh, and leave. I've never heard of any bear attack of people just leaving with their ribs crushed. Like, come on, man. Detective Zems on the scene. You heard it here first, case closed.
If Carl encountered a black bear and fired one shot into the animal based on the one found shell casing, that one shot is not going to be enough to put that animal down. Or very rarely is one shot going to be enough to put down a black bear. And Carl, being a hunter, he would know that.
I told you, bruh. Me and Mrballen is on the same page, bruh.
And he would want to keep some distance with his weapon up aimed at the animal in case he needed to fire again. But even if Carl was really confident that one shot had taken the bear down, well, why would he risk his life by checking on the animal to make sure it's down without his gun? Why did he place it against a tree and then walk 70 feet over to this animal that if it's not dead, it poses an enormous threat to you? You're all alone and unarmed with a huge bear that you've shot. No one's going to do that. You're going to carry your gun. But even if all of that happened, that Carl, unarmed, approached this bear thinking it was dead, but the bear's not dead, he's lying in wait, and he leaps up and attacks Carl. Even if that happened, black bears don't squeeze people to death. They might scratch you and bite you and rip you to pieces, but they don't squeeze you to death. And Carl...
I'm a god! Why do I have to keep doing this? I have never seen this video, bro. I'll put it on my life. I haven't seen this video. He almost said the exact same thing that I said. I'm not even a hunter, and I know that. Come on, people. And I tell you guys, Survival Tips with Zems is going to be a huge hit because I am right. It is... To hear Mrballen say the same thing I just said. They may bite you, you may bleed out, but they're not about to scratch and hug you to death, bro. This is not cartoons. This is not Brother Bear. This is not none of that, bro. This is real life. Merry Christmas.
Only had light scratching on his wrists and on his hands. He did not have any signs of a traditional bear attack. So either this is the first time in the history of black bears that a black bear squeezed a person to death, or something else squeezed Carl. But what kind of an animal is, one, so strong it can squeeze a man's chest to the point where it breaks his ribs, and two, happens to be roaming around the Bennington Triangle?
Sasquatch. Ski Patrol. So we're looking at, right here, we're looking at a Yelly, maybe one of them Coca-Cola polar bears. We don't know yet, folks. We're dealing with something crazy. It's number 2. It's getting crispier. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, support your boy. Happy holidays.
Ape Canyon is a gorge on the southeast portion of Mount St. Helens in the American state of Washington. The canyon is so named after a group of miners alleged that ape men, aka Bigfoot, attacked their cabin there in 1924. And if you want to learn more about that specific event, I covered it on my YouTube channel in an earlier video. It's right here. It's called Scariest Bigfoot Attacks, and I'll also include a link in the description. And while some people believe there are literally ape men running around this gorge on Mount St. Helens, there's never been a confirmed sighting. However, there was an event in 1950 that forced the general public to come to terms with the idea that there could be ape men running around Ape Canyon, or at least a large predator somewhere out there. In 1950, 32-year-old Jim Carter was a member of the National Ski Patrol at a ski area called the Milwaukee Bowl, which is in the state of Washington. Like everybody else on the ski patrol, Jim was a highly skilled skier and mountaineer. In May of that year, Jim was a part of a 20-person climbing party from Seattle, Washington. Their plan was to go to Mount St. Helens, hike up above the tree line, pick a spot, and then ski back down again. So the group arrives at Mount St. Helens, they hike up the mountain, they reach the spot where they want to ski down from, they sit down, they're putting their skis on, and Jim puts his on, and he says to the group, hey, why don't I ski down a little ways, I'll set up my camera on a tripod, and I'll take a picture of you guys as you pass, and then I'll follow you down to the bottom.
So, I think we already talked about this before. There's no splitting up. I mean, he's a ski expert, I get that, so he's probably confident. He's probably done this multiple times, so he probably felt comfortable to go down there and shoot up his GoPro, or set up his GoPro, and try to film some Red Bull type, action or whatnot, but I don't like splitting up, bruh.
And the group said, great, that sounds awesome. And Jim wanted to use his camera, so it was a win-win. So Jim, in full view of the entire group as they're getting ready, he skis down a little ways and then turns left into an area called Dog's Head, which was a little bit flatter than the area they were in, so probably a better spot to set up his tripod. But as soon as he turned left into that area, he was out of view of the main group. So after a few minutes, as the group is getting their stuff on, they took a little bit longer because they're trying to time it so they all leave at the same time because they want to get this picture all at once. And so they take a little bit of extra time, they're all ready, and then finally they head down and they make that left. They're going to pass by Dog's Head specifically so Jim can take their picture. But when they bank around the corner, Jim's not there. And so they're looking around and they're saying to each other, did he tell us he was going somewhere else? Because it seemed an awful lot like he was going to Dog's Head, but obviously he's not here. And so someone said, well, maybe he got annoyed with us because we were taking so long to get ready up there and he just already went to the bottom. And so they agreed that's what he did. And so they got back together again and they headed down to the bottom. But when they got to the bottom, Jim wasn't there. And so they sat there for a few extra minutes looking up at the mountain, and they're kind of scanning down at the bottom and they're looking all over the place, but there's no sign of Jim. And so the group started to get really worried and they contacted authorities. When the first search team arrived, they went up to the area where the group thought Jim had been setting up at Dog's Head. And as they were looking around, all they could find was this discarded film box. So not any film or camera inside, just a box that would have held the film. It was kind of buried in the snow. Near this film box, they found Jim Carter's ski tracks, and they were not angled south towards the bottom of the mountain where the whole ski group had gone. They were angled east.
Yeah, that was another thing I was just about to ask too. Like, what happened to the ski tracks? My man didn't leave no ski tracks or nothing around, bro. You know how hard you gotta get snatched for your film to fall out, bro? I don't know. I don't know if Bigfoot's all around winter, summer, fall, spring. I don't know if he's all around or what, but I want to find out what it is, man.
Towards Ape Canyon. And they followed Jim's tracks, and they said they never deviated. They were total straight lines, like he was not trying to slow down. In fact, he was trying to go as fast as he possibly could. And at some point, he began leaping over these huge ice crevasses that if you mistimed, it's a death sentence. You're going into the crevasse. And he didn't just jump over one. He jumped over 2, 3, 4 at full speed without slowing down. And then his tracks got all the way to the edge where it overlooked Ape Canyon, and he went flying off. When the head of the search team saw this crazy ski line from Jim Carter, he said to the media that the only reason a guy like Jim, an expert skier who would never take risks like this, the only reason he would be skiing like this is if his life was in danger or if he was being pursued. So the search teams moved down into Ape Canyon.
It makes sense now. Okay, so whatever it was, pretty much the Snapchat breakdown what happened, right? So the guy went down to set up his camera, right? He heard the bushes rustle. Seen some snow fall over to his left. He looked, and he seen something peering down at him. My man got scared. He grabbed all of his equipment as much as he could. He jumped on that trail. My man's skiing with his, bro. He's skiing all around. You know, he's shifting, he's doing all this, he's skiing. They don't go down anywhere unless it's dangerous. So my man jumps, he's jumping over these canyons, he's jumping over these ditches, gaps, whatever you want to call them, right? He's going as fast as he can, but whatever is behind him is keeping up. Because my thing is, if they wasn't behind you no more, you would have slowed down, you know what I'm saying? This which means whatever was chasing him, bro, was either matching or almost close to the same speed that he was going. And he had no choice. It was either turn around and face this creature or risk it all and jump off the cliff. I'm hoping he landed safety and maybe a soft patch of snow, but I don't know how snow works. You had to be some type of scared. Your adrenaline must be this high, bro, to be doing all that extracurricular stuff that he was just naming previously.
And for 5 days, 75 people combed the entirety of Ape Canyon up and back over and over and over again. They never found Jim, and they never found his skis or his camera or anything. And the whole time they were looking, those 75 searchers would report that anytime they were alone, they had the distinct feeling they were being watched. And it got so uncomfortable for many of them that they refused to go back into the gorge unless they had someone right next to them. After those 5 days of searching almost exclusively inside of Ape Canyon, they spent another 5 days not only continuing to search Ape Canyon, but also the surrounding areas. And finally, after 10 days of finding no trace of Jim Carter, the search was terminated. The only rational thing investigators could point to as the reason behind why this happened to Jim was he was diabetic and he had forgotten his insulin that day, so perhaps he became hypoglycemic and he became confused and then managed to ski off the cliff into Ape Canyon, where he landed in such a way that he remained hidden.
Why would he do that? If he needed it, he would have just told them. He would have just skied back down to go get it. Why would you go through all that just for an insulin shot?
Or, like the head of the search party seems to think, he was being pursued. He was skiing for his life. Whatever was chasing him had scared him so badly that he was skiing in a straight line down a cliff, jumping over ice crevasses before falling into Ape Canyon. And then presumably whatever forced him off the edge went down and scooped him up and took him away, and that's why they couldn't find him. But unless someone finds his body or finds some other piece of compelling evidence,
we'll never know.
We will probably never know for sure what happened to Jim Carter.
I told you, that thing jumped off the cliff with him. But nobody's about to put their life in extra danger to go get something that they need to stay alive. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need my asthma pump. I'm not about to run through a burdened building to go get it. I'm just going to go around, go get it. Why would I run through more danger to go get, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on now. The Sierra Sounds. The Sierra Mist. I haven't seen that in a minute.
Somewhere out in the Sierra Nevada mountain range lies a small hunting camp that's been there since the 1950s. Despite its fame, only a handful of people know exactly where this camp is. But even if you were given explicit directions on how to get there, you might just walk past it because it's tucked away in the middle of the woods up on this mountain. It's just a small fire pit, a couple of logs around it, another log set up for cutting wood, and there's some paths that have been beaten down over the years from its occupants, but it's pretty much unremarkable. According to camp members, the fastest way to get to the site is by horseback, and it's approximately 8 miles, and it's through very rugged terrain on this mountain, and it includes a 4,000-foot elevation gain. However, this 8-mile trail is not marked, and every year it changes slightly because trees will fall along the way, changing the topography. Ron Moorhead, who's one of the 4 original camp members, laments the fact
that the topography is kind of, I think I kind of remember what that is. It's kind of like the vegetation and the landscape and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? Like the relief features, you feel me?
That anybody knows anything about this campsite. He wishes they could have kept it a secret, but he knew that wasn't an option after what they discovered there in late 1971. In early 1971, Ron was a young man and he was invited out for the first time to the Sierra camp by the 3 founding members. When Ron got there, he fell in love. It was this beautiful, natural, pristine wilderness that overlooked this amazing valley, and they're surrounded by these huge white fir trees. There's a freshwater stream that trickled by, and in terms of hunting, the deer were plentiful. Ron said this campsite was the closest to heaven he thinks he'll ever
it was that good?
The only real drawback of the site was the large bear population, but they always had guns on them, and they built this shelter out of heavy fallen timbers that they could go inside, shut the door, and they'd be protected from the bears until they left. When there wasn't a bear threat, they slept on the ground in tents. In late 1971, Ron came back to the camp with the other 3 founding members. They'd had a great day of hunting, and they were standing around the campfire just chatting with each other when they started hearing a grunting sound not far away from them in the forest. Now, typically, whenever a bear came to their campsite, it was usually at night, and they would hear it grunting somewhere off in the forest. And as soon as they heard it, they would stop and they would listen to kind of confirm it was a bear. And if it was, they would go inside of their shelter and they would wait for it to leave. But this time, when they stopped to listen to confirm it was a bear, the sound they heard next was something they had never heard before. And it was so frightening, they almost fell over each other running to get inside of the shelter. It was like a whooping sound you would expect from an ape, except instead of a series of whoops like you would expect from an ape, it was one loud whoop, and then silence, and then another creature somewhere else made a responding whoop that sounded different.
So what they're doing, they like, whoop, they over here. Whoop, I see them. Whoop, let's get it. So they about to whoop into their freaking campsite. They about to knock down that little made fortress that they got here, and they about to get clapped, bro. 100%. I mean, then again, one of them had to survive. Right? He's able to tell this story, actually. Or maybe they all survived. Hopefully they all survived. But if it was heaven sent, man, it wouldn't be a heavy populated bear. I couldn't do it, bro. I sleep light. Everything will wake me up, too. I wouldn't be able to sleep knowing there's bears surrounding the camp area and stuff like that. That's too scary for me. Like, I hope, I don't know, I hope they have weapons with it, because whatever these 2 things whooping pretty much made the whole forest just be quiet.
Than the first. There was at least 2 creatures that were basically speaking to each other out in the forest out of view. Ron would say, as these creatures were howling and whooping at each other out in the forest, the men were huddled around inside of the shelter looking at each other like, what is that? Has anybody heard that sound before? And nobody knew what it was. And after a little while, they heard these creatures running towards the camp. They were pretty well off, but they heard these heavy footsteps approaching. And so Ron and the others, they put themselves up against these slats inside of the shelter where they could look out in the direction where these creatures were, and they're staring out just past the light of their campfire into the dark forest, and they hear these things running, and they stop. They don't come into the clearing. It's like they're just outside of where they could see. And then their tone completely changes. These creatures, which are now one on one side of the camp and one on the other, begin speaking to each other in a language that almost sounds human, but it was nonsensical. It sounded like an imitation of a human language, but not human. And so Ron and the others are terrified, and they're just staring through the slats, waiting to see this creature that's going to emerge at some point, but it never does. Instead, the creatures continue to stay outside of the light and they move around behind their shelter out of view. And so Ron and the others move to the very middle of their shelter to get as far away from the walls as they can, because there are breaks in the walls and they're worried one of these things is going to...
But my thing is, why does Bigfoot always have to not show himself? Even when there was no cameras around, he still managed to not show himself. They will come as close as you want, but they always be behind something. Like, why? Why don't you show yourself? What is it? What is up with creatures and ghosts not wanting to show them? Just show us. We know you there, bruh. And you know we're here. You see us. Let us see you, bruh. You have to pick up. You know how fast you have to be to go be on one side of the forest and take a couple steps and be right up on their camp, bro? Just show yourself. I want to see a description of these things.
Reach through and grab them. But finally, after hours of these creatures running around the perimeter of their camp, communicating in this totally otherworldly language, they started whooping again and ran off. And for the rest of the night, Ron and the other three stayed right in that shelter. The next day, when the sun came up, the men were out of that camp as fast as they could. These are hard, rugged men, and they were very shaken up by this experience. And they tried to talk about it, but there was just no way to describe what they were hearing and experiencing. And so they just decided they just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible.
I feel like they should have pulled straws. Like, all right, bro, who's the oldest? All right, let's go. I mean, you lived your life for a while now. I think you should go out and check to see what it is. Even the next day, I wouldn't have been able to get out that shelter, bro. I would have stayed there until the coast was clear.
And they'll deal with this later. But as soon as they got out of the woods and back to their homes, they didn't talk about it anymore, except Ron became obsessed with whatever it was that was making that sound. He so desperately wanted to find out what it was. And so he convinced the other three members to come with him and go back to the campsite, except this time Ron was going to bring an audio recorder and he was going to try to capture some audio of these creatures. And so the four men went back to the campsite. They didn't even hunt that day. They stayed right near the campsite. They made this big fire and they're all just kind of nervously sitting there waiting, kind of hoping it happens and also hoping it doesn't happen. And at some point in the evening, Ron said he heard footsteps way out in the middle of the forest and they sounded like they were running towards the camp. The four men sprint inside the shelter, lock it behind them.
Please.
Ron turns on the audio.
Yes.
Now, before you listen to this famous recording, here are its bona fides. After being recorded, Ron sent it to Dr. R. Lynn Curlin, who is a professor of electrical engineering at the University of Wyoming, and he and his team analyzed it, and they concluded that, one, it was unaltered, so it's not been edited, it's not been doctored in any way, it's an authentic audio recording. And two, whatever was making the sounds could not have been a man, because their vocal range was dramatically higher and lower than that of a human.
That's crazy, dude.
The doctor said, based on average pitch and tract length, the creature that was making the sound most likely was between 7'3" and 8 feet tall. In addition to the Dr. Curlin examination, a cryptolinguist expert named Scott Nelson also pointed out that it would have been nearly impossible in 1971 for Ron or any of the other hunters to dub the sound of their voices, which are on the recording, over the sounds that these creatures were making. Because a couple times in the recording, you hear both sets of voices happening at once. That's something you couldn't have done in 1971. Despite numerous attempts to debunk this recording, it still stands as a legitimate, unedited recording. Although what they were...
All right, look, before we get into this, just know this is the first credited Bigfoot video that I probably will ever see in my life. Any other time Bigfoot's disappeared, but we got to hear an actual sound of what this creature may sound like. Oh, my blood. All right, let's get it.
Recording is still a mystery. Have a listen.
Yeah, bro, you have to cut that out all the way out, bro. Stop playing games for it really roll up on us. Like, what if he's actually saying, like, hey, I'm over here. Come and get me. Yeah, I'm over here, buddy.
There's two of them.
You heard them big old steps?
Big rocks. It's a hard act to follow.
It sounds like he talks to us and they talk to each other.
Yeah. Right there, I just seen movement right through there.
Shortly after this recording was made, Ron stopped hunting at this camp. However, over the years, he has gone back several times because he's obsessed with trying to find out what's out in the forest, but he says to this day, he still has no idea. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's video, let us know in the comments what it is and where you found it. So give us the timestamp, and if you're the first to do that, we'll pin you at the top of the comments section. If you enjoyed today's video and you haven't done this already, please go over to the like button's house on the next really hot day and ask them to get you a cold drink. While they're gone, put a large raw salmon in their AC vent. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly 3, 4, even 5 video uploads. If you want to get in touch with me, you can direct message me on Instagram or on Twitter. My username for both platforms is the same. It's JohnBallen416. I also have a ton of content over on TikTok where my username is Mrballen. If you have a story suggestion, please submit it to our subreddit just called Mrballen. It's linked in the description below. So whether I see you on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, or some combination, just know that I really appreciate your support. And until next time, that's going to do it. See ya.
Man, what do I think when he says these like button things? I feel like he's actually done this before. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Also swoop down to that description box and hit the link and go follow my boy Mrballen and watch the video in its entirety while me pausing and stopping to the whole thing. On to the next video. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Zems and welcome to the final video. Top 3 photos with disturbing backstories, part 15. This video is by Mrballen. I saved this video last because I know you guys like Mrballen so much. So I gave you a 2-part series of Mrballen. So if you guys haven't already, be sure you swoop down to that description box and go watch the video in its entirety while me pausing and stopping through the whole thing. Thank you guys so much for the support. I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas, and I really hope you guys enjoyed everything.
3 progressively more disturbing stories, and at the end of each of them, I will share the pictures that are famously associated with them. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right channel because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer to install brand new hardwood floors in the like button's home, and on installation day, show up and remove all the old flooring, but then quit the job. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories. In 1987, 21-year-old Deanna Wild had just separated from her husband, and she was living with her 2 friends, Virginia and BJ McGinnis, who were both 54 years old. On April 2nd of that year, the trio decided to visit Big Sur, which is the very beautiful but very steep and dangerous section of the Central California coastline. They pulled over at a particular cliff overlooking the water to take some pictures. Afterwards, as they were getting ready to go back to their car, Deanna wanted a closer look, so she stepped to the edge of the cliff where she lost her footing and she fell 500 feet to her death. It was ruled an accident, so investigating officers refrained from taking any on-scene photographs, accepting instead Virginia's photographs that she said she had taken right before it happened.
Do you have to get that close? I get it, it's beautiful. Do you have to get that close to the edge, man? Like, you couldn't be like maybe 10 to 15 feet in front of the edge. You have to be right on the edge of the cliff.
Deanna's mother was unable to afford a funeral for her daughter, and so the only person she could think to ask to help her was a lawyer that went to the same church as her. His name was Steve Keeney, and Steve said, yeah, of course, I'll try to make some phone calls for you and see what I can do. And in doing so, he wound up learning about the case, about what happened to Deanna, and he discovered that her 2 friends, Virginia and BJ, had actually taken a life insurance policy out on Deanna the day before she fell off the cliff. And so Steve began digging into the backgrounds of Virginia and BJ, and he discovered that Virginia had a history of being around a high number of accidental deaths and suspicious fires, and that she had cashed in a whole bunch of life insurance policies. So all of a sudden, Deanna's death did not look accidental. Steve would become obsessed with the idea that the McGinnises were behind Deanna's death, but
watch your friends, people. Watch your friends. Even sometimes family. Don't let people know you got an insurance claim on you, because people will take you out, bruh. 100%.
Fortunately, there was virtually no evidence to support that, because when she died, the investigating officers ruled it an accident. So there was no crime scene, there was no evidence collected, the autopsy was very cursory, and so Steve would spend 5 years building a case against Virginia and BJ.
There you go, Steve.
But at the end of those 5 years, it was a rock-solid case, and Virginia and BJ were arrested. During their trial, the real story of what happened to Deanna finally emerged. On that April day in 1987, the trio went to Big Sur and they had lunch together, they had a picnic, and while they were eating, BJ slipped some of his prescription antidepressants into Deanna's drink, and so after lunch, the drugs were in Deanna's system and she began to get very drowsy, to the point where Virginia and BJ had to literally hold her up. She was falling over, she was so tired. And so while Deanna's in this state, Virginia and BJ tell her, hey, let's go over to the cliffs and take some pictures. And so they walk over, Deanna's stumbling and BJ's holding her up, and they get to the edge of the cliff, and BJ turns around so the ocean's at his back, and he's propping up Deanna, and Virginia steps away and she takes their picture. And then right after that picture, BJ, while still holding Deanna, turned around to face the water and kind of carried Deanna right to the edge, and Virginia took one more picture of them facing the water. And then right after that picture was taken, BJ took Deanna and threw her off the cliff. But perhaps the most disturbing part of this case is that as soon as he threw her off, Deanna kind of came to and whipped herself around and managed to grab onto the cliff with her hands. And so she's literally dangling, holding onto this ledge like in the movies, begging to be pulled back up.
Don't tell me he stepped on her hand,
and BJ,
bro.
instead of helping her back up, picked up rocks and bashed her hands until she fell off the cliff. Ultimately,
These people right here, bro, are the definition of evil, bro. Like, instead of going out and getting their own money, they gotta kill people to get their money, bro. Not one, they have many accidental deaths, which means they've been taking out people because they don't want to go make money on their own. It's not that serious, bro. Everybody loves money, but when it started getting to the point where you gotta harm and break the law, like, you don't need to do all that, bro. Can you imagine you holding on for dear life and they start hitting your hands with rocks and you fall off to your death, bro?
it would be these last two pictures that Virginia took that got her and BJ convicted of killing Deanna. Because these pictures clearly showed Deanna was impaired compared to the earlier pictures on the camera roll. And the only reason these pictures existed is because Virginia wanted a trophy from the killing, because she was actually an uncaught serial killer that went around killing people and cashing in their life insurance policies. One of her victims even included her own 3-year-old daughter. BJ would actually die during his trial. As for Virginia, she was found guilty and sent to jail for life. Here are the final two pictures that Virginia took of Deanna.
That's crazy, bro. Like, right after this photo, she was dead, man. It's a movie like that on Netflix. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a movie just like that where her girlfriend is a kind of like a serial killer and she cashes in on people's like life insurance checks or something. But it was a really, really good movie. And it's kind of similar to her death, to be honest with you. But the only thing was, she wasn't impaired. But it's a good movie. You guys should check it out on Netflix. You can find it. But I don't remember the name with you, to be honest.
On July 30th, 2016, Janice Stewart was at home in College Station, Texas, preparing for a wedding she was going to be photographing the following week. Her 34-year-old daughter, named Sunday Rowan, lived a few hours away in San Antonio, and she was planning to go with her to help her take these pictures. As Janice worked, her cell phone kept buzzing. Since sunrise, Sunday had been Snapchatting her photos of her and her husband Matt, who was also 34, as they got ready for their hot air balloon ride that day. 18 months earlier, Sunday had bought Matt the tickets as a birthday gift, but the trip kept getting delayed because of bad weather. But on this July morning, the weather had cleared up and the trip was finally happening. Sunday and Matt often sought adventure to balance the demands of their jobs. Matt was the chief of clinical trials at the Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio and was a rising star in the field of burn research. Sunday worked at Crazy 8, which was a kids' clothing store, and she was devoted to her young son from a previous relationship. At 6:58 that morning, Janice received an image of the balloon's ground crew prepping the wicker basket that would hold her daughter, her son-in-law, and the rest of the other passengers. Around 7:30, Janice received another image. This one was a selfie of Sunday and Matt posing inside of the wicker basket. They were up in the air. There's a beautiful field below them. They're smiling and they're hugging.
Yeah, see, I can't do something like this. If I ever go that high up in the air, bro, I'm taking a parachute or something. Like, I gotta have some kind of backup equipment that may or may not save my life. Even if it didn't open, I'd rather have something and try it, you know what I'm saying? Just to have nothing and just watch whatever happens after that. I don't know the story, but I'm pretty sure it has to do something with the balloon blowing up or something. But it looks fun, but I just can't. If anybody else been hot air balloon riding, let me know down in the comment section.
After that, the messages stopped. 10 minutes later, at 7:40, 85-year-old Buddy Miller was making breakfast in his ranch when he heard two loud explosions. The first one actually rattled his house. When he looked out the window, he saw this massive plume of black smoke on another rancher's land off in the distance. Alarmed, he jumped in his pickup truck and raced past his cows to the blaze a half-mile away. Commotion like this rarely rarely occurred in Maxwell, Texas, a quiet, rural community about 40 miles south of Austin. At her home just up the road was 66-year-old Margaret Wiley, who heard the explosions too. She said the first one reminded her of the sound her 20-gauge shotgun made. When she stepped onto the porch, she heard the second explosion, and she said it sounded like a loud pop, followed by a whooshing sound, like the sound a gas stove makes when it ignites. When she looked out towards where the sounds had come from, she saw this massive fireball explode in the distance, and she immediately called 911. When Buddy and the other first responders arrived at the scene, they saw this huge fire at the base of a power line tower, and at first they couldn't figure out what was actually burning. They heard the sound of hissing propane tanks and thought maybe it was a tractor or a baler that had caught on fire.
It's that
But
balloon.
upon closer inspection, they saw a wicker basket and they saw bodies. This was a hot air balloon accident. It would turn out the pilot of that hot air balloon was 49-year-old Skip Nichols, and he had elected to fly that day despite a low cloud cover that had grounded the other hot air balloon companies in the area that morning. Also, Skip was on a mixture of prescription and over-the-counter drugs that impaired his ability to fly the balloon safely. After
Bruh, why would you? Oh my God, bruh, why do people do stuff like this? Just because you're an expert, bruh, doesn't mean you can take pills and just freaking maneuver a hot air balloon, bro. And everybody else air balloon services was grounded, and you decided to fly, and now you just killed this almost the whole family, bro. I don't know. Maybe I don't think nobody survived, including him. It's just amazing how we watch these videos and how all this stuff can just be avoided if people just used common sense. Like, common sense would have kept at least 90% of the people alive from these videos that we've watched. Not just for today, but the ones previously, the one last week, last month. Just common sense, dude. That's all you need is just common sense. Why would you operate a flying, I don't know if it's considered a vehicle, but any kind of machinery while you're under that medication?
After being in the air for 8 miles above the clouds, Skip decided it was time to land, and so he blindly descended through the clouds, and he immediately hit a power line. An arc carrying 340,000 volts of electricity cut the balloon's metal support cables like a torch. As soon as the basket began plummeting toward the earth, the fuel lines disconnected from the burners overhead, spraying liquid propane up into the burners, and then arced back down into the wicker basket, immediately engulfing the entire thing in flames. The burning basket fell over 100 feet to the ground. By 10 a.m. that morning, Janice had still not heard from her daughter after that last text she sent, which included the picture of her and Matt, that selfie image up in the balloon. And Janice was concerned that something had gone wrong. So she turned on the TV, and the first thing she sees is hot air balloon crash in Texas, no survivors. And on the screen, she immediately recognized the smiley face that was on the balloon that had crashed.
That gave me the chills.
She recognized it from the images her daughter had sent her. Even before she got the official call, she knew instinctively that her daughter and her son-in-law were both gone.
Can you imagine, like, hey, they're not answering my phone calls. I'm just going to wait. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're having fun. And you sit down and turn on the TV and you just see, like, two of your, oh my, you just see they're dead, man. I couldn't even imagine. My heart would just evaporate, bruh. Like, I would die on the spot. I don't know what it's like to have kids, but I'm pretty sure it's the worst feeling in your life. I don't think no parents wants their kids to die before them.
Here are the final pictures taken on Sunday, Matt, and the other 14 people who were on board that balloon.
Rest in peace, man. Get some rest in peace in the comment section, bro. Because that dude just pretty much cost everybody their life, man. Jesus. Oh, Snapchat was on there back then, huh? The dog filter, I remember that. Tressie and Brian Neal. Their 2 daughters. Joe and Tressa Owens. Rest in peace to them. Matt Rowan. Sunday and Matt Rowan. About to hit the power line. Don't tell me they actually caught it hitting the power line. Hitting the power line. Oh, they didn't show it. Okay. This is for anybody. I know a lot of people like to live their lives on the wild side, but please make sure you check and double check the people that you are flying with, that you're hiring, that you're scuba diving with, that you're hiking with. Please do background checks on these people, man, or check multiple companies and see what they have to offer. If one company is grounded and you call another company and that one's grounded, and you call another company and they say they're flying, I don't think you should fly. Just do lots of research before you guys go out and do stuff like this, because I don't want anything like this to happen to anybody, because I'm pretty sure they didn't think that was going to get somebody that was under medication pretty much not come back that day. This is it, baby. This is it, baby girls. This is the
On
last
September
one.
25th, 1978,
Why
Pacific
September?
Southwest Airlines Boeing 727 jet airliner entered San Diego airspace. Like all PSA aircraft, Flight 182 had a whimsical black button nose and smiley face painted underneath the cockpit. These so-called grinning birds were synonymous with the company's self-promoting ad campaign about them being the world's friendliest airline. But the airline was often criticized for being too friendly with their super low airfares, their kind of comic banter that the captains would employ through the intercom to passengers, and their female flight attendants who wore miniskirts and were instructed to make nice with the male passengers. Because the weather was clear, air traffic control directed Captain McFerrin and First Officer Fox to switch from instrument flight rules to visual flight rules procedures and to
I mean, too friendly. I mean, I'd rather airline be too friendly than get on American Airlines and like Fight Club and stuff up on there, bro. American Airlines, bro, you better get on ready to fight. You better bring your boxing gloves, hand wrap, all that, bro. It's going down. This is your captain speaking. Please be ready to throw those hands. First stop, San Diego. Right stop, these hands. Like, yeah, bro. That's American Airlines.
to begin their final descent. Visual flight rules refers to pilots using their eyes to guide the plane. It's done when they're flying low, the weather's clear, and they can see the ground. At 8:59 a.m. that morning, as PSA Flight 182 descended down to 4,000 feet, air traffic control advised them of a Cessna, which is a small plane, that was ascending in their direction. Fox responded that they saw the Cessna, and so air traffic control came back and said to maintain visual separation. Maintain visual separation meant that despite ground radar-based controllers who could provide vertical and lateral separation criteria, the burden for maintaining separation fell solely on Captain McFerrin and his crew. In layman's terms, air traffic control was telling them, don't lose sight of the Cessna. Inside the Cessna was a flight instructor named Martin Casey and his student, who was a United States Marine named David Boswell. As this little plane ascended, air traffic control informed them that PSA 182, who was right in front of them and slightly above them, they were on their descent. However, they had the Cessna in sight. As a result, the men inside of the Cessna did not take it upon themselves to actively begin looking for this jet. They assumed the pilots of PSA 182, who had them in sight, would avoid them. Back in PSA
No, it don't work
182,
like that.
there seemed to be some confusion in the cockpit. The two pilots were debating whether the Cessna they were watching fly lower than them, past them on the right, was the same Cessna that air traffic control had told them about. And at some point they agreed, yep, that's got to be the same Cessna.
It was another
and so
one.
they called in to air traffic control that it looks like the Cessna has passed us. They've flown past us on the right. Immediately after this transmission, the black box recorded the two pilots talking to each other, basically trying to convince the other that yes, that was definitely the right Cessna. But after a couple of minutes of reassuring themselves, one of them says, boy, I hope that was the right Cessna. According to later testimony by the air traffic controller who was in communication with the pilots of PSA 182 as they were on their final descent, he would say when Captain McFerrin came over and said the Cessna has passed him on the right, he believed him and he didn't think to check to make sure it was the right one. But in reality, the Cessna that McFerrin and Fox had seen was the wrong one. The real Cessna they were...
Let me tell you guys something. No matter how good you know someone to be good at their job, you know what I'm saying? Please double check. Even the best of people sometimes overlook things. I'm telling you that from experience. Not a fun, but seriously, always double check, man, because you never know. You may have missed something. I don't know. You can't really blame because they both kind of just like, oh, I think that's the one. If you have to say I think that's the one, then double check, man. Unless you say I know that's the Cessna, then carry on about your business. But if you say I think, I'm not sure, I hope that's the right one, then yeah, have the control double check because it may be if he's out there flying, there's higher chances of more Cessnas out there flying. You get what I'm saying?
Supposed to maintain visual separation with, the one containing Casey and Boswell, was still ascending in the direct flight path of PSA 182, except now this Cessna is in 182's blind spot below their nose, so they literally can't see each other. At 9:01 that morning, air traffic control got an alarm that PSA 182 and this Cessna are about to collide, but for some reason the air traffic controller did not alert both aircraft. Instead, this controller only contacted the Cessna and didn't tell them this was a dire situation. They said, hey, there's traffic in your vicinity, but I'm pretty sure it's just PSA 182 and they already see you, so you're fine. So Casey and Boswell inside of the Cessna just continued to ascend. 1 minute later, at 9:02 a.m., PSA 182 flies directly over the Cessna and strikes them with their nose wheel. The Cessna gets hooked by the wheel and flips upside down and gets trapped underneath the right wing of the jet. Seconds later, the Cessna splits in two. The tail section, containing David Boswell, plummets to the earth like a rag doll. The nose section of the Cessna that contained Martin Casey stayed trapped underneath the right wing for a few seconds before it detonated. Inside of PSA 182, this explosion was deafening, and immediately after it, McFerrin was recorded saying, "Easy, baby, easy, baby." Then he asks Fox, "What's the damage?" And Fox says, "It's bad, man. We're hit." Despite trying to keep the plane flying level, it lurched forward into an unrecoverable nosedive, and McFerrin, knowing they were doomed, calmly calls out to air traffic control and says, "We're going down." Air traffic responded, "Okay, we'll have the equipment ready for you." Then the black box recorded the sound of a stall warning inside the cockpit, and as the aircraft streaked at over 300 miles per hour straight towards the ground, McFerrin's last known transmission to air traffic was, "This is it, baby." Seconds before impact, McFerrin gave his final command over the intercom, which was, "Brace yourselves." And then right before the black box cut out, someone in the cabin yelled, "I love you, Mom." At 9:03 a.m., PSA 182 slammed nose first into the ground just outside of downtown San Diego in an area called North Park. The resulting explosion of thousands of gallons of jet fuel sent a shockwave that was registered 2 miles away. Almost immediately, firefighters were rushing towards the rising mushroom cloud.
It's nothing left. Look at this photo. Like some small pieces of debris. There's nothing left. No seats. No. Oh snap! I found a figure thing right here. Can you imagine, like, truck control and stuff know what's happening, but the people down below don't know what's happening unless they look up. So somebody in this neighborhood could have been watching TV and this plane could just wipe them out, bruh. That's crazy. It's really nothing left. And his last words was, "This is it, baby."
Of black, oily smoke, and many of the first responders that arrived at the crash site in those first few hours were deeply disturbed at what they saw. The bodies that had not been destroyed in the explosion had gotten trapped up in the trees. All told, 144 people were killed in this accident. 135 were from PSA 182, 2 were from the Cessna, and 7 were just unlucky people that were standing on the ground in North Park. Following a 1-year investigation into the mid-air collision, it was determined that the flight crew of PSA 182 was found to be primarily responsible because there was that moment that was picked up in the black box where the two pilots were unsure if the Cessna that passed them was the right one. But instead of calling that into air traffic control and getting confirmation, they blew it off. The morning of the crash, a San Diego photographer was at a press event when he heard the explosion overhead, which was 182 colliding with the Cessna, and he began taking pictures, and he captured these now 2 infamous photos of PSA 182 seconds before they hit the ground.
Damn, that is a good picture, bro. That's crazy. Oh my goodness. That's what I always look
that's going to do it, guys.
Dude.
If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments what it is and where you found it. So give us the timestamp. And if you're the first to do that, we'll pin you at the top of the comments section. If you enjoyed today's video and you haven't done this already, please offer to install brand new, beautiful hardwood floors at the Like Button's house. And on installation day, remove all of their original flooring and then quit the job. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly 3, 4, even 5 video uploads. If you want to get in touch with me, you can direct message me on Instagram or on Twitter. My username for both platforms is the same. It's JohnBallen416. I also have a ton of content over on TikTok where my username is Mrballen. If you have a story suggestion, please submit it to our subreddit just called Mrballen. It's linked in the description below. So whether I see you on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, or some combination, just know that I really appreciate your support. And until next time, that's going to do it. See ya.
Dang, man, that last video just hit different, man. That was insane. I don't know about you guys, but that just scared the living butt cheeks out of me, bro. Like, the last video we had was something about flights too, where the girl kind of survived and she was the only one there and they thought she was a water god and whatnot. But that's just double check, people. That's, if anything, just double check. But I hope you guys enjoyed this 3 Christmas special video, man. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're excited or if you was excited for this, let me know down in the comment section, man. But before you guys go, I got something for you. Have yourself a Merry, Merry Christmas. Thanks for stopping by with me. It was Mrballen, Mr. Nightmare 2. But when Zems is added,
You know what to do. Have yourself a Merry, Merry Christmas. Hit that subscribe button too. This is it. I'll see you soon. I'll see you Tuesday, and that's Monday for you guys for watching. Now I got to go.